Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to review the Los Gatos real estate market analysis for November of 2009. My name is Robert Whitelaw. I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of California. I'm also a member of the National Association of Realtors and a certified ePro. There's a variety of ways to get in contact with me. Probably the best way is through my website at www.soldbyrobert.com. There you'll find all my contact information plus access to my weekly podcast called Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. And you'll also find probably the best MLS search tool available for the area from San Francisco down to Monterey. It's all map-based, very easy to set up a search that you can get notified by email whenever there's changes with new listings or with changes in prices, that kind of thing. So it's very useful. I hope you can get some use out of that. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can send those emails to robert@soldbyrobert.com. If you'd prefer to call me via telephone, just dial 408-852-0525. If you'd prefer to use one of the online chat software packages like AOL Instant Messenger, Google Talk, or Yahoo IM, the screen name there is the Rebel Broker. And if you're a Skype user, the screen name is simply Rebel Broker. Now, referrals are always appreciated. If you or anyone you know is interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate in the Silicon Valley area, please feel free to give me a call. I'll be happy to help in any way I can. But more importantly, if you are not interested in buying real estate in the areas I directly serve, I can still help you find the right agent for you. Just get in contact with me, let me know what you're looking for, and I'll find the right agent for you in the area where you're shopping. Now let's go ahead and jump right in and take a look at the numbers here for Los Gatos for November of 2009. We can see the inventory numbers have gone down a little bit when compared to last year. The inventory is actually down 21.31%. That's 39 fewer homes on the market in November of 2009 than in November of 2008. That gave us a grand total of 144 homes currently on the market in Los Gatos. Now, if we take a look at the inventory, the new listings, this is heading in the right direction as well. We've seen a decline of about 31.25%. That's 15 fewer homes listed this the month of November in 2009 than at the same time last year. That gave us a grand total of 33 homes listed in the month of November for Los Gatos. And finally, sales, we've also seen that increase, and that's been a dramatic increase. You can see that Los Gatos sales numbers were sort of dwindling since 2006, and this is just an amazing recovery. In fact, it's an increase of 244.44%. I had to recheck those numbers several times to make sure that was correct. That's 22 more homes sold in November of 2009 than in November of 2008, for a grand total of 31 homes sold in Los Gatos. So that's a great change in the dynamic in the market in Los Gatos. If we go ahead and we look at the ratio there for that gives us 4.64 months worth of inventory. That's a big improvement from last month's 6.2. And what that number is, look at it in two different ways. One is how many months would it take us to sell off every house in inventory if the sales numbers stayed as they are. So that is 4.64, about 4.5 months. It's also a competition index. So if you're a seller, it's basically telling you how many homes are on the market for every one that sells. So the competition right now means that every buyer out there has got about 4 or 5 homes to choose from that you're in direct competition with. You need to be that one out of 4.6 homes that gets sold. And that's a nice improvement from what we saw last month in 6.2. Will we be able to sustain these sales numbers? It'll be interesting to see. This is typically not a month where you we'll see how this figures in with chronologically just looking straight back in a moment, but it's a little interesting to see a big increase in November like this. It indicates that quite a few things went into escrow in October, because that's usually when those things happen, and that's usually not a big sales time. Usually sales numbers are a little bit down, but again, what we're looking at here is just October's. So this is the best October that Los Gatos has had in the last 10 years. If you look at those numbers going all the way back, the only year that kind of comes close is 2004. But it looks like we even beat that by a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe 2004 may have us beat. But if it's not the first place in the last 10 years, it's the second as far as November is concerned. Now let's go ahead and comparing this to the county. We still are lagging behind the county in Los Gatos, which is a bit of a shocker because of the kind of community Los Gatos is. The county ratio for November was 3.31. So still, Los Gatos is not outperforming the average for the county. Now let's go ahead and look straight back. This is not just the month of November. This is just looking all the way back to July of 2008. You can see here that the inventory numbers are actually relatively flat. Very little change here. Overall, from last month, October to November, we saw a decrease of 7.1% in inventory. That was 11 fewer homes in inventory in November than in October. But overall, over the last year, you can see there's a little variation here, but the inventory numbers have actually stayed relatively flat. As far as the number of homes getting listed, that's on the decline in general. From October to November, we saw a decrease of 34%. That was 17 fewer homes listed in the month of November than in October. And as far as sales are concerned, generally trending up, so this isn't a fluke month. We've seen sort of a gradual increase. Now, what's interesting is if you look at last year, we sort of saw a decrease. We saw the summer season come and go, and then we dropped a little bit in sales in October and November, a little bit of a boost in December, and then we didn't really start to see things recovering until after the new year. That's typical. That's a typical season. This year, it was the opposite. We saw things sort of bottoming out in September and then increasing from there up till to this month, which is a little strange. And as I said, sales are up 24% just from last month. That's 6 more homes sold in November than in October. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown here for short sales and foreclosures. We had no short sales in Los Gatos in the month of November. 16% of the homes that sold were foreclosure sales, and 84% of the homes that sold were conventional. When you break the numbers down, that foreclosure number comes out to 5 homes sold that were foreclosures. 26 homes were conventional sales. If we look at last month, we can see that there were 4 short sale properties. 4% of the homes were short sales, 8% were foreclosures, and 88% were conventional sales. So we're still seeing fairly consistent performance on what conventional sales are making up the market in Los Gatos, still up towards the mid to late 80% range for everything that sells, and that's very healthy. That's pretty much what you'd expect from a community that doesn't get hit quite so hard by foreclosures, because there are other areas where more than half of the homes that are selling are short sales or foreclosures. But Los Gatos, lucky for them, are not in that particular situation right now. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at home prices. You can see that a little bit more interesting fluctuation here in Los Gatos. We saw them, and again, this is just the month of November. Last year, the 2008 number is a little bit misleading. We had one property that was really up there, which brought up the average price. And remember, last year we had very few sales. There were something like 10 sales. So just one property selling for $3-4 million is going to really skew that average, which it did. And you'll see that here reflected in a moment with the next slide. But the average home price is down 30.24%. That's a $612,270 drop. We're comparing it directly to last year, so we're taking the numbers as they're actually reported. But again, if you look a little bit more closely with the numbers, you see that number is a little artificial. What you should be looking for, a more realistic interpretation of this data, is that if you drew a straight line between 2007 and 2008, that's a little bit more between 2007 and 2009, that's a little bit more realistically portraying what's happened with pricing in Los Gatos. The average price for a home was let's just read off the whole thing, $1,412,730. And the median, see, this is what I meant. You see how the median actually went down in 2008 when compared to 2007? That average price was just very much skewed. Remember, the median price tells you that half were below that amount and half were above that amount last year. So we just had one property that really threw a wrench on the works last year in November. This year, the median is up, which is a good thing. The median price was $1,360,000. The median increased 28.3%. That's a $300,000 increase. You can see they're relatively close. I like to see that. That just tends to indicate it's a true average is what we're getting. But there was a little bit more volume of homes being sold below the average price than above it. Now, the highest priced home that sold in November was at 115 Wood Road. It sold for $2.9 million. It was originally listed, according to the Multiple Listing Service, for $3.275 million. That real number should be $3,850,000, but that's not what will get reported officially. This home was relisted literally the same day. So it was taken off of the market for as little as 15 seconds one day, and had its price changed, and somehow managed to lose the connection to the old asking price, which was $3.85 million. This property was on the market though for 289 days. in going back and looking at the documents or the numbers from back then, that 3.8 was a pretty unrealistic price even back then. Now, the lowest price single-family residential home in Los Gatos was at 263 Kensington Way. That sold for $639,900. Its original list was $697,950. The days on market was 157. That's a strange property because it was originally listed. That again, that asking price is wrong, but it's wrong in the other direction. It was originally listed for under that at $675,000, and then for some bizarre reason, the price was raised by an agent who took over the listing, which is a little bit screwy. And then it was on the market for 157 days. Now, the average price per square foot for the homes that sold in Los Gatos was at $555.54. That's down from last month's average of $599.62. Now, home prices just looking straight back now. We're not just looking at the month of November. We're looking all the way back to July of 2008. We can see that there's definitely, the clear trend here is down. I don't think there's any question about that, with a little bit of fluctuation. And again, with the smaller sales numbers we see in Los Gatos, these numbers can tend to be skewed just by one really high-end home selling. If we go ahead and look at the median, we can see that we haven't seen any real strange performance. Interesting that in September we actually had a little bit of a boost where the more homes sold above the average price than below. That's kind of an interesting thing to note. When you see that thing happening more than once over the course of a few months, that can sometimes indicate an interesting change in trend. But I don't think that's the case here. As I said, the average home price was just a little over $1.4 million. The percentage price change from October to November, prices increased 19.49%. That's a $230,442 change. The median price stood at $1,360,000, and that was an increase from October to November of 22.52%, $250,000 change. And the total number of homes that sold was 31 in Los Gatos. Now, just to remind everyone, when you're looking at these numbers, don't look at this and start thinking to yourself, well, I need to change how I've priced my home based on this number. Instead of thinking of this strictly in the terms of what the average or any of these other numbers reflect, think of it more as an indication of where more activity is taking place. So for a long time, we saw the emphasis being on lower end properties. Numbers like this tend to tell us that there's simply more broad activity going on in the marketplace, as opposed to thinking, oh wow, well, if average prices went up 3% or down 5%, that's what I should adjust my asking price. It's a far more complicated question than that, and this should really just tell you that we're seeing more activity, particularly when you look at this month versus last month. You can see we simply had more activity with some higher end homes. The median and the average both bear that out. Okay. Days on market. How long is it taking to get a home sold in Los Gatos? Well, if we are to believe these numbers, 91 days. I always like to look a little bit more closely at these numbers. According to this, we've seen an increase of 22.97% from 2008 to 2009 and how long it takes to get a home sold. That's 17 more days to get a home sold than the same time last year. Now, the lowest days on market was 2. We had one property that sold in 2 days. Longest days on market was 293, and the next closest after that was 289. Homes sold before they were even put onto the MLS was 0. Homes sold in 1 to 7 days was 4. 6 homes were sold in 8 to 30 days. 10 homes were sold in 31 to 90 days. 5 homes were sold in 91 to 180 days. And 6 homes were sold in over 180 days. So that gives us 32%, 32.2% of homes that sold did so in under 30 days. So just about a third of the homes sold in under 30 days. There's no reason why you can't reasonably expect that to be the case for you if you're looking to list your property. But again, it's all about how it's priced, how it's marketing, how it's being put out there for buyers to get access to it. Is the 91 day time frame a very realistic one? Yeah, I think it is. But if you find yourself as a seller in a situation where you've gone 30 days without hearing anything, if you haven't had any inquiries, you haven't had any potential offers, those types of things, I think what you need to do is get with your listing agent and figure out a strategy to change that, because the bottom line is you should be getting at least some interest in your property under those circumstances. Okay, now what's interesting is that we've actually seen some consistency in this particular number from last year. It's the same percentage of homes that sold on 30 days or less. 32% last month. Sold in 32% of last month's homes sold in 30 days or less. So it's interesting that that's fairly consistent here in Los Gatos. All right, now how many days to sell just looking straight back? Again, we're just pushing right back to July of 2008. Obviously, the trend is there. Those big, crazy spikes, again, those are situations where probably some property sold that had been on the market for an extremely long period of time. So I like to put that line in there to sort of normalize the trend. Is there anything here that we can see that sort of informs us? Not horribly. You can see that last year in October, 36 was the average days it took to get a property sold. And a lot of that had to do with what the months that led up to it. You'll see an anomaly like this when right after the summer season or right towards the end of the summer season, where homes that listed in the summer season and were really put in the market correctly sold very quickly. So you'll see sometimes that number be relatively low. But you'll also see an artificially high bump in these numbers when you get an increase in sales. Now, remember, we did have an increase in sales this month, and so you kind of see that reflected in a boost in days on market because you're reaching deeper into the reservoir of available homes, and by virtue of doing that, you're taking more homes off of the market, and some of them have been on the market longer. All right. Days to sell from October to November increased 40%. That was 26 more days to get a home sold in November than in October. All right, now let's take a look at the map to see if there's anything interesting here. Not really. Another month where we don't see a whole lot of downtown action, which is a little bit interesting. A little bit more spread out, a little bit more at the northeastern end of Los Gatos as far as volume is concerned, north of Shannon and Blossom Hill, which is a little bit different. We usually see it spread out a little bit more, particularly down south of Shannon. I would have expected to see a little bit more going on. Anything going on in those areas that would make it clear why things are selling more there? Well, in a lot of those areas, you tend to see slightly lower than average pricing for Los Gatos, so that could be one of the motivating factors. Does this show a solid trend of buyers moving more towards lower priced properties in Los Gatos? Not terribly, but because it is weighted a little bit more in that direction, that does seem to indicate, at least inform the fact that we're seeing a little bit more performance on properties at below the average price. All right. Now, I do appreciate you all taking the time to review these market analysis. I hope that it's valuable information for you. I'll go ahead and put up my contact information here again. I won't bother reading through it. I don't need to put you through that again, but I do want to put it up here again in case you'd like to jot it down to make use of it later on. Again, I hope this data has been useful for you. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you all next time.